Hello everybody and welcome back to FantasyFootballFix.com, the leading platform to help you improve your rank, increase your team value and give you the best chance of winning your mini leagues. And today you're watching my latest episode of Eddie versus the Algorithm, the series where every single week I reveal to you the algorithm team and then put together a team of my own, a free hit if you like, for that specific game week to try and beat it for points. So let's see how I got on in game week 9. So here we are then live in the Fix studio, and let's have a quick recap of specifically how the algorithm team got on in game week 9, and then we'll just switch quickly across to my team, show you how it compared and add up the points totals to see who came out on top. A lot of you said you wanted to keep this feature in the videos. Unfortunately, it's not really a way of putting them side by side without it just taking up way too little amount of the screen so that you can barely see the numbers and all the players. So I'm just going to do it in this format. Let me know if it's okay down in the comments. As always, appreciate all your feedback for the people who take time to leave a comment down below. In goal for the algorithm and myself actually was Ederson in goal for City, and he was so close to that clean sheet against Brighton. Unfortunately made the stupid decision himself to actually give that penalty away with a silly foul on the byline, and yeah, Brian converted the penalty and therefore Manchester City defenders didn't get their clean sheets, which is a personal hit as well as with Cancelo and Diaz in my own team, and the algorithm did in fact have a City defender in as well. So a double up there with Diaz, who did get a 2-pointer. That's a bit better than Cancelo's one after the Portuguese left back picked up a yellow card. Bednarek was a bit of a strange one, and as I mentioned, I went with someone else that you'll probably be guessing already if you didn't watch last week's video. And yeah, Bednarek scored only a 1-pointer. FPL with 0, who obviously didn't make an appearance at all. So his points are substituted for Brownhill's, who's if you can see down there, very, very small, I'm sorry, 2 points on the bench for Brownhill. Keane with an assist, so yeah, actually managed to get something, even though Everton just failed to keep the clean sheet, and Rudiger with that clean sheet and the assist in the 7-0 victory over Norwich, which could have gone a bit better. I mean, the algorithm did play with some very safe defenders. We'll see in a moment who I went for instead. But yeah, that was the back five, and you have to say it probably wasn't cast as a success there. Only realistically one return in Rudiger's that the algorithm would be happy with there. But in midfield, they definitely earned their keep with Salah, obviously as captain, scoring 48 points for the algorithm. And yeah, it still hurts me every time I see someone with Salah captain, knowing I didn't do it for my own personal team and for the algorithm team that I take on, in fact. So yeah, Townsend with 2 points, but Salah making up over half the points total this week for the algorithm's team itself, which is an absolutely incredible stat. But the forwards last week were Vardy, Ronaldo and Antonio. So Antonio came through with the third player in the team to score over 6 points last game week with that goal against Spurs. Ronaldo, very poor performance and a yellow card, and Jamie Vardy substituted very early on in that Leicester fixture against Brentford. So that's how the algorithm team got on with a points total of 79. Let's see if I was able to beat it and have a quick dive in to how I got on and what total points I scored. So here is my team from game week 9, and as you can see, despite having the same formation and quite a few similarities actually in point scores, there were quite a few drastic differences, and the main one being that, of course, I didn't captain Salah. I went with Havertz just as I did in my personal team, and it backfired massively. Obviously, a 21 net point swing in the algorithm's favour just from that, so we really had some work to do in catching up to that not awful, but again, pretty reasonable score of 79 for the algorithm last game week. Jesus and Wilson came in with a couple of returns up front that actually helped and scored as an overall greater total than the front three of the algorithm did, obviously with Antonio being the only one that returned out of the front three for the algorithm. And then in defence was when we really came through. Tini, obviously with a no-show at all, meant Gallagher's 2 points came off the bench, just a very similar with Azpilicueta and happened with Brownhill. And then we had, again, double Man City defence, so I decided to go with the same. We were so close, as mentioned. Ederson with 2. Cancelo picked up a yellow card, which, again, meant 1 point for him. But then it was the 3 big hitters that came through really for us when we needed it most. Reece James, Ben Chilwell and Livramento, and I took a bit of a risk going with Chilwell and James. There was always the chance that they perhaps wouldn't start, at least one of them, and I had Mbeumo and Townsend and Gallagher, as you can see down there, on the bench for this exact reason. I didn't really think Tierney wouldn't show at all. But that's what they're there for on the bench, and they came through, and although they didn't score more than 2 points, which I would have been hoping for, as I invested a bit more in them than the 4.5, so you could have got the exact same score, I'm still not disappointed at all. With Chilwell and James, it really, really paid off the risk going with them over Rudiger and Azpilicueta, and Livramento over Bednarek just seemed like a pretty simple switch to make, obviously picking up a goal in that game for Southampton. So overall, the algorithm scored 79 points in game week 9, and Eddie's team scored, drumroll, 80. So we beat the algorithm by a 1 point difference. Absolutely incredible scenes. I couldn't almost believe it when I added it up. But yeah, that makes the total score as of game week 10 7-3 to Eddie, 3 to the algorithm, 7 to me. And yeah, I'm very, very happy with that. I'm absolutely chuffed. We're building in quite some distance now. And yeah, I'm surprised that I've been able to kind of ride this run, keep consistent. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Last game week, I think, was probably a bit easier, and I was expecting to win. It wasn't by that much of a margin, I'll be honest. The Salah captaincy, if I'd captained Salah, it would have been a much, much bigger difference. Obviously, it would have been 22 points ahead. Quick maths. But yeah, realistically, I'm happy with it, how it went, and let's move on to game week 10 and have a look at how the algorithm is going to be lining up for this coming game week. So here is the algorithm 11 for game week 10, and let's just jump straight into it. In goal, it's going to be Melier of Leeds, and a general rule this year, if you're looking to keep a clean sheet, pretty much seems to be, go with whoever's playing Norwich, and you've got a pretty decent chance of it. So yeah, the Leeds goalkeeper makes his way into the algorithm 11 side, despite it being an away fixture as well, and the injuries that Leeds have. It seems a pretty safe bet to go with. Leeds' underlying statistics in terms of clean sheet potential don't look fantastic. However, as I mentioned, Norwich's attacking threat looks even worse, and so perhaps that is some of the logic behind it. Maybe I'll have a look at going for maybe someone like a premium keeper, as that might have a better chance of getting a clean sheet, despite the fact that, of course, the easier fixture will be mostly Norwich for the majority of teams. In defence, it's again going to be a back five, which is very interesting. This time, a very, very expensive back five. No Bednarex or Livramentos in this one. It's all high budget defenders. Chilwell keeps his ways from my team from last week, so he's finally earned his way into the Algo 11, as does another man who was in my team 2 weeks ago, I believe, and that is Laporte. So he makes his way in ahead of Diaz, interestingly enough. Robertson, Trent and Cancelo also made the spots. Robertson, I think, for the first time in quite a number of weeks. I can't remember actually him making the Algorithm 11 team so far this season, so that's going to be an interesting one. Instead of going with Mane or double up in midfield like the Algorithm normally does, they've gone with the double up in defence, and I'm assuming that Salah will be in that midfield. Cancelo, again, a very, very easy pick to make. Chilwell, no-brainer as well. Laporte, going with him ahead of Diaz. They both seem like they're going to 100% start. It was Ake and Stones in the Carabao Cup yesterday as of recording, so that makes sense to go with Laporte or Diaz, and you can go with either. Laporte's attacking threat is slightly better in terms of underlying stats, and he obviously is a little bit cheaper as well, so that not really too much to complain about going for him ahead of Diaz. And then Robertson and Trent, realistically no-brainers, two best fullbacks in the league right now, to be honest. If you could argue that someone like Chilwell is getting into that argument, but Robertson and Trent are so crucial to that Liverpool side, and if they score goals against Brighton, I'm sure that they will both be involved. In the midfield, it's going to be Salah, no-brainer, and then the two other picks, De Bruyne and Sarr. So De Bruyne did actually start in that Carabao Cup game, which makes me a bit wary as to why he's in this team. Obviously, he could still start at the weekend. That doesn't rule that out at all. He did get substituted off. But I wouldn't be going with him, and I think I'd probably take someone like a Foden ahead of him, which you'll probably get to see in a minute if I decide to go with that young Englishman. And then Ismail Sarr, who is in my personal team, so I'm delighted to see him in this Algorithm 11, the talisman of Watford, coming in for that home game against Southampton, and I'm pretty confident of him doing well. His underlying stats do make him quite high up in the projected points totals over at fantasyfootballfix.com that you can check out using the link down below in the description. And so if Watford get involved with something this week, no Dennis for them through suspension, and so I think it will be Sarr or Josh King who are going to get involved and score the majority of the points if there are a few goals in that game at Vicarage Road. And then finally, moving on to the front two, it's going to be Iheanacho and Antonio. So Iheanacho makes his way in. Vardy does have a bit of a knock. Could that play into the hands of the algorithm? Had they decided to go with Iheanacho as an alternative, you'd probably be the most confident of Iheanacho out of all the Leicester forwards starting. And then, realistically, Daka and Vardy are kind of down a peg, both with doubts either way, whether it's through being out of favour like Daka is and earning his way into the starting 11 at the moment, or having a bit of a knock, as is with the case of Vardy. So Iheanacho seems a safe pick for that home game against Arsenal. And then Antonio, who just seems to be Mr. Consistent throughout this season when he's fit, seems a no-brainer to own him. And Aston Villa have looked a pretty weak defence over the last couple of weeks, so definitely not a bad choice at all to go with and target them. I really do like Antonio as a pick every single week right now once he's fit, unless he's playing a Man City or a Chelsea probably. West Ham have looked very, very good, obviously getting a victory over Manchester City in that same Carabao Cup game that De Bruyne started and Laporte and Cancelo didn't feature in. So it's going to be interesting to see if West Ham can continue this run, and that will hopefully continue their confidence into the weekend and they can get a win away at Aston Villa. In terms of the captaincy, it's going to be a no-brainer. Mohamed Salah takes the armband. Vice captain is a bit more interesting. Obviously, it won't matter because Salah is going to pretty much 100% start at the weekend, right? Unless Klopp pulls a magic rabbit out of the hat and somehow decides to bench Salah, rest him as he did with Mane against Liverpool, maybe. I'm not sure I can see it happening, although it hasn't been unknown to happen. It has happened before. Maybe that will happen, but realistically, you have to captain Salah. De Bruyne with the vice captaincy is something I'm a bit more interested by. The underlying stats for De Bruyne aren't fantastic this season, but historically his FPL points and consistency do make him a pick that tends to get into the algorithm 11 quite a lot when he's fit. And home to Crystal Palace, you'd have to argue that is quite a nice fixture. And so are there any other candidates for prime vice captaincy? I would probably maybe even consider sticking it on a defender, but De Bruyne, if you're having him in the team, you may as well stick that vice on him. Let's have a look then at how I'm going to do against the algorithm this week. You can leave below in the comments. As always, once I'm showing my team, who do you think is going to do better? But I've got to go away now, make a few changes to this, and see if I can make a team that's going to beat this squad for points just alone in Game Week 10. So here it is then, my team to take on the algorithm 11 for Game Week 10, and you can see a straight swap in goal. Mendy comes in for Melier. Just wanted to go with one of those more premium assets in a better defence, in my opinion. Mendy and Ederson it was between, but in the end, I decided to go with Mendy. Chilwell does retain his place for that away fixture at Newcastle, and Reece James comes in to complete the triple up in the Chelsea defence. I don't think it's the most sensible decision, but I do want to stay loyal, if you would say, to James and Chilwell, and I did want to bring in Mendy. It was very tight between him and Ederson, but I think this could be a risk that does pay off this week. Livramento against Watford just seems too good to ignore. Watford, not a great defence at all, of course. Third worst XG in the league over the last couple of game weeks. And Livramento's attacking prowess just seems an incredible thing to jump on, and you have to go with him. He could have had 2 goals at the weekend, would have been absolutely incredible. Trent obviously stays in the team, and Cancelo also stays in to complete the back 5. In midfield, Mane's brought in, so the triple up of Liverpool is still there. However, it's 2 midfielders and 1 defender, as opposed to 2 defenders and 1 midfielder. And I did consider vice-captaining him. However, as a general rule, I don't like to vice-captain someone in the exact same game as my true captain, because simply if the game is called off for some reason, then I don't want to not have a captain at all. That would be a bit of a disaster. So I've decided to put it on Foden, despite him being what you would argue a bit more of a rotation risk. I would pick him over Mane for the vice captaincy for that reason. And then up front, Antonio stays in the team, but Tony comes in for the away fixture against Burnley. He picked up a goal and an assist in midweek in the Carabao Cup, so owners in FPL unfortunately didn't get anything out of that, but should be good for his confidence. Something to see is whether Mbeumo's absence could be releasing Tony, could have been holding him back, creating chances for Mbeumo. We'll have to wait and see, I suppose. However, it's shown so far from the very small sample size that Tony does seem to be grabbing a bit more involvement in some of the goals when Mbeumo is not on the pitch. So if Mbeumo is in fact out this weekend, the Frenchman doesn't decide to feature, I think Tony could be a brilliant option for that reason. On the bench, we have got a bit of cover as well, because I appreciate a few of the players in this team are slight risks. Josh King home to Southampton, obviously coming off the back of a hat-trick against his former club in Game Week 9. Seems a very, very safe pick. I was even considering potentially, even starting him over Livramento. And then I've got Norman against Leeds, who I think is the best 4.5 option, to be honest, right now. And then Brownhill, who I don't think will be getting on. In terms of projected points, they've been filled in. 59 for me, 65 for the algorithm. The algorithm's always going to be ahead in terms of projected points, because overall, that is exactly what the algorithm 11 is the highest projected points team you can get for that specific game week. It'd be a bit weird if it came out and mine was higher, but yeah, I'm willing to defy the odds again and hopefully pick up up another victory, making it 8-3 to Eddie in game week 10. Fingers crossed. As always, let me know down in the comments, are you Team Eddie or Team Algo this week? Who do you think is going to take the dub? I appreciate that. It's probably going to be a bit closer in terms of predictions than last week. However, the score is hard to get much closer than it was last week. So as you know, anything can happen with FPL. But that is going to be it for Eddie versus the algorithm. It's going to be that's going to be it also for my videos this week on the Fantasy Football Fix channel. So I hope you have enjoyed not only my 2 price change videos, but this one as well. If you have, leave a thumbs up. It's massively appreciated. And if you want to see a bit more of me, you can head over to the FPL Phillips channel. That is down below in the description. The link is there if you want to see it. So thank you very much, everyone. I do wish you the best of luck for game week 10. I hope it's not a shoddy for some of you that I know it was in game week 9. And I do wish the FPL gods a fantastic game week for you. So thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you later. Goodbye.